Let me edit this real quick.
Yeah.
So, nevertheless, I met her and we went. I brought her to the States. She originally was working in Saudi and Kuwait when I first met her, and from there it just we talked forever. That's what I tell most people. We talked for a good 2 years. And then finally I brought myself over here. And then, from there, it was just kind of, I had my 10 clients. 2 of my largest clients had already bought my plane tickets, spent like $8,000 on plane trip tickets. And then, and then they go, both of my largest clients, they can no longer afford you. And went from making, let's say, $7,000 a month to like barely over $1,000.
Oh, wow.
And I had already bought my plane tickets, and I was devastated because you got mad. At this point, I was at a Hummer paying payments on that, and brand new Hummer, brand new Chrysler 300, brand car payments, wife, 3 children, and now I got to take care of them on $1,200 basically a month in the States. And that's just not going to happen. But I already bought my plane trip tickets. I said, we'll go ahead and go over the Philippines. We went to the Philippines, got here, and my mother-in-law was like, because I was depressed. I mean, obviously. And she's like, what's wrong? My mom's communicating with my wife, and she told her, she's like, well, you do realize, because we have a house we had already started building here. It's like 3,000 square feet. And we weren't done with it yet. And she goes, you got a house here. We had a car here or a van here. Bills, you might spend $300 a month. So wow. I literally uprooted my entire family and moved over here for that very reason. I tell people, I didn't move here, quote unquote, to retire. I moved here because I was broke. I did it the opposite way around. Most people move here because they have the money. And that's not what happened with me. And then my daughter, she got married, met a Filipino here, got married to someone in the government. And then we opened up a laundry shop. And then the laundry shop makes $40 a day. And that's amazing. It's a miracle. You're making $40 a month and you're doing good. And I picked up a client from an agency in the States in Los Angeles. And I did that. That was right before COVID. And the guy that got me the job said, why don't you open up your own agency? This is a Filipino VA guy. He's talking to me. He's still good friends with me, John Signey. And I said, really, I don't want to, John, because an agency is not fun. It's a pain in the butt. I've done it before. And COVID hits. And I started picking up one client here, another client here, and income starts increasing. In 3 months' time, I got up to about 30 clients, had a team of 12. Then found out they weren't doing what they're supposed to be doing. Let go everybody but one person. Optimized my Facebook profile. Started going in groups, just giving value, answering questions, just that sort of thing. And now we're sitting over 200 people that we work with, agency specifically. And it grew. I mean, it just grew rather rapidly, but it, some of the things that helped me grow, which is funny, is kind of why I reached out to you, besides us seeing you speaking at the SEO conference, was you specifically talk about CRO. And that's your thing. And that's what I tell people. It's funny because they come to me all the time and they say, for instance, my website might not be the best website in the world or whatever. It's not your, but it does what it needs to do. The website originally was a huge website, 30-something pages, and I got literally like no leads whatsoever from it, maybe one or two, not a whole lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I switched that and I went to just SEO and web design. And I literally had it set up where I had some information, a form, social proof, some video, just very basic. And now I get, tons of leads, tons of forms being filled out, everything just by switching that. And now even when I'm designing a site, I tell people all the time, I'm very picky when it comes to, do you have a sticky header? Do you have your phone number where everybody can see it all the time? Do you have content, call to action, or do you have like most people have, which is just content and maybe a call to action at the very bottom or a call to action at the top and there are no other call to action. So I'm just very interested to hear what you're saying, because a lot of it's like SEO. Everybody, I've told people before, they think SEO is the cure, end all be all. And even with a crappy website, they still think they should do great. And that's all I'm saying. Even if you have SEO, and you're getting all the traffic in the world, if your site's not going to convert, then it's still going to suck. So that's where I'm at, really. Just kind of want to know your take on CRO and, how you got started at SEO and, just, that sort of thing.
Sounds good. Keep talking about that.
Yeah. Let's see here. See if I have any questions yet coming into the group. And yep, don't see any comments yet, but that's the main thing. I mean, because honestly, that's what saved me. I mean, I took it from, let's say, 10 clients and the 2 I lost to well over a couple of hundred just by doing what I do, and then focusing more on CRO. And it's something I just tell people all the time. So let me see here. I mean, let's see.
Now you had Kyle Roof on last week, right?
Yeah, he's a pretty fun guy too. And I didn't know he was in Thailand. Everybody's in Thailand, and they keep asking me, why don't you go to Thailand? And I said, well, obviously I didn't marry a Thai woman. So I married a Filipino woman, not a Thai. So let's see here. Yeah, I have one comment. She's like, this lady, she's like, she taught herself SEO, but for the first 11 years, all she did was focus on CRO before SEO.
Mm-hmm.
Because SEO is long game, which is what most people don't understand. So tell me a little bit about yourself. How did you get started and where you're at and everything else? What you got going on for yourself?
Yeah, so I got started in 2001. I started a computer repair business. Couldn't find a job, and I had spent my 20s kind of retired, just goofing around in my music studio that I built, and but along the way I learned computers. I learned how to build them and fix them and all this and that. So my first marketing at the time, I had tried several other failed businesses, kind of half-heartedly, but now I was desperate. So I printed out some business cards on some cardstock and, on my home printer, and printed out a flyer. So computer repair, $40. I think it was $35 an hour. And the ones that you pull the tabs off of the flyer like that.
Yep.
And I got lucky, man. My first client.
There's the good old days. I remember those days.
Yeah. I got lucky. My first client was a law firm, and wow. I did my first 5-hour job, and it just felt amazing. Mm-hmm. And I didn't have very many clients at first, so I catered on the weekends, and then after about a year, I had enough clients to scrape by, and I built that business up. Fast forward to about 2007, and I had tried like every kind of marketing. I had tried like billboards and magazine ads, and all my business was coming from referrals.
All for your computer business. You were trying everything, the traditional marketing.
I met this guy, and he started talking to me. He introduced me to SEO, And I started realizing like, hey, I have a website. I had a couple of them, but they weren't getting me any business. And so I started noticing this one guy. He was named Sky Computer Services here in Los Angeles, and he was showing up for everything. Sometimes 3, 4, 5 times on the first page of Google. I'm like, Jesus, man, I can't find me anywhere. This guy's 5 times. What is going on here? So I started, I started reverse engineering things. I started like, I started Googling him and be like, wait a minute, he's listed on this website. I'm going to go list myself on that website. That was the early days for me of discovering citations, right? So it took me about 1.5 years because, I wasn't only doing SEO, I was fixing computers, most of the time. I was busy as hell. And I figured it out and got to the first page of Google. And then I was just dominating him. And then I was the most dominating company in my area. And started hiring people, and and a few years later, I never fixed a computer again.
It's kind of unusual. Most of the time, I get people like if they're a computer repair, they either don't do the websites and they refer them out, or they'll do the website design and the SEO because they're like, shit, everybody's coming to me for computers. It's natural because you got business owners coming to you for computer repair. No, you doing a website? Oh, do that. Oh, you do SEO? Yep, do SEO too.
Yeah, I know, right? And you just figure it out. But I didn't know. Back then I didn't know a lot about SEO, but I knew enough to get to the first page of Google. And that was back when Google Maps was still relatively new, I believe. It was the 7-pack or the 10-pack or whatever. It was big, right? And we were always there. But then, it went to.
I believe that was also pre-Panda, pre-Penguin too.
Pre all that, yeah. Back then, you could do. You could just hide 1,000 words of keywords and rank.
That's how I got started. Was in Black Hat, and I used to have how I got started because the same way someone came at me, did website, and then he was like, hey, can you get me on first page of Google? I never knew SEO, but he said, I'll pay you $2,000. And I knew I liked the money. And then I learned it. And then all you had to do is do, let's say, 2,000 backlinks and you're on page 1. It wasn't hard at all, really, back then.
Oh, it's hard now, man, compared to back then. I didn't know SEO. I really didn't. I feel like every year goes by and I'm like, wow, last year I didn't know SEO. You know what I mean? Like I keep making huge leaps in growth in my knowledge of SEO because now I do it full time. See, it was always like a hobby. I was like trying to run. I had 3 businesses at this point. I had a store on Abbot Kinney in Venice Beach, which Abbot Kinney in Venice Beach is like the Rodeo Drive of Venice Beach. Yep. You walk into a store and then you see a shirt like this. I actually got this in Abbot Kinney, but it wasn't $1,200. But you can buy a $1,200 T-shirt. It's just like a T-shirt.
That's insane.
And then they have, it was voted the coolest street in America, right? So I was living like a rock star, man. We were doing like $1 million a year business at my store, computer repairs and iPhone repairs, and selling cool little, $500 handmade iPhone cases and stuff. And I finally, we were open 7 days a week, and it was pretty brutal. I had at that point, I had 8 websites. I had 13 phone lines. I had 17 employees, and it was pretty wild. It was pretty wild. And I just I got to a point where I'm like, I don't really like this. And I started saying, I want to have an SEO agency because you have that recurring revenue. Like with computer repair, like every day you got to wake up. You need more computer repair, more computer repair. But with right now I've got a few dozen clients. And I don't wake up, like my phone's not ringing, 100 times a day like it used to. It literally used to ring over 100 sometimes a day. And I have to answer the phones a lot, let me talk to you. Yeah, that's terrible. Some days I'll go days without having to talk to anybody on the phone. It's like heaven,
I remember there was something in I believe .com secrets with Russell Brunson talking about he built up an agency and he got to the point where he's like, I don't even want to get up. And that's the way it was whenever I'd first started building mine. It was like, why am I so tired? I got 12 people. I'm tireder now than I was when I was doing it by myself.
Mhm.
And that's when I took my vacation and found out what I found out. And that's when I fired everybody, but with like one person. So, because it shouldn't be that way. You shouldn't hate, quote unquote, getting up. You know, it should
Yeah,
be.
that was me too. It was pretty bad. So in 2014, I started my agency, and I just kind of absentee owned the businesses, but it was still a lot of work. And then, last year I sold all my businesses. By the way, I built the business up to the number one computer repair business, voted like 5, 6 different times in Los Angeles, which is a big deal because at the
Yeah,
time,
especially in Los Angeles too. So
2,500 computer repair businesses in Los Angeles. There's 13 million people in Los Angeles County. So, um, super competitive, but it's not like I was the biggest or did the most business but I mean, we had clients like HBO and Paramount, Sony, UCLA, USC. I mean, dude, my clients, I had a billionaire client. He was actually my next door neighbor on Abbott Kinney, Davis Guggenheim. He was a really cool dude. But anyway, said goodbye to all that and went full time with my agency. But it was about in 2015 when we started doing SEO for, we're doing it for like a dozen or so clients, and it was, I was learning and everything, and discovered SEO Signals Lab a little bit later, but discovered Dr. Flint McLaughlin, and he's the one that really changed my life. I started learning conversion rate optimization from him, and I thought I knew a lot about marketing, and then I watched the first video by him, and I was like, my ego just was crushed. Like, I don't know shit. I don't know shit, because I felt bad. Like, I'm getting rankings, giving them traffic, all right. Like, but guess what? It doesn't mean shit because I lost a lot of clients. They're like, yeah, it's great, my ranking traffic going up, but my phone's not ringing. My forms aren't being filled out. And I didn't understand. Like, I'm like, well, Jesus, like, what's the problem? Then you must be you must be the problem, the customer. I have no control over that. And throw your hands up in the air. That's not my job to close the deal for you. But no, it wasn't that. It was just like, there was something really missing from the equation, and that was, what happens after they find you. And I mean, that's that meta description in the search engines, right? It starts there. It starts right there. It starts with your GMB. Some people read that, it's not just about the star ratings and how close you are. People, especially like you're going to come into their house, like fix their plumbing or computer or some shit, like especially now with COVID, they're going to look you up. They're going to read your website. And if you don't project the right image, say the right things, and evoke the right feelings, that's the most important part, because it doesn't happen here. It happens right here in the heart first, and then it goes, and it's justified with the brain. It starts with the heart. And so, anyway, I watched the Dr. Flint McLaughlin, the first video. I remember it to this day. It's called Hidden Friction because I've watched it like 5 times. And I just, after I moped around for a couple of days, like, man, I am an idiot. I don't know anything about marketing. Because I started learning marketing when I was 20 years old. I'm 52 now. So I'm like, anyway, I dug in and I just started watching every single video, and I just started, I just started absorbing all this stuff, and it felt like it really aligned with me, because I'd gone from fixing computers, which obviously are really complicated, to working on something even more complicated, which is the human brain, which is the ultimate computer. And that's what CRO really is. It deals with the way people think and feel, right? And I go back to that, what I said about the way people feel, right? Because you have to have, it's not just about, like, SEO you can do with just brains, but with CRO, you've got to do with heart. You've got to have emotional intelligence. You have to have an emotional IQ, and most people don't. They lose their temper. They're mad. They're jealous. They're envious. They're crying. They're yelling. They don't know why, right? They haven't done the work necessary to figure out why they feel the way they do, because you can't understand someone else unless you first understand yourself, right? That's why, like, personal growth, books and speakers.
What type of personal growth books do you read?
Well, so this is going to sound crazy, but it was in the midst. It was like you were saying, like, how can this be? I have 12 people or 11 people, and I feel worse than when I was just doing one man. I was a one man show, right? Well, me, it was like at the peak, like, 17 employees, 13 phone lines, 3 businesses, like 200 people coming in my store every day, crazy rock and roll lifestyle, with celebrities and everything coming in to get their shit fixed and buy things. And I was, had just had my first kid. We bought our first house. We had a mortgage. My wife's like, everything's. And I started seeing a therapist, and I can change my life. Like at first, like the first 4 months, I was like, this is stupid. Like, I used to think people that went to therapy, like they had mental problems, like they're like, schizophrenic or bipolar or depressed. Like I was none of those things. I just wasn't able to understand myself well enough to get a hold of everything and figure out what it was that I wanted, what made me happy, what made me sad, and all. And that's the basics, right? So I went from having like a 3rd, 4th grade emotional, education to, a college level. I'm not like an emotional master, but I'm like a completely different person now because I put the work in to understand why I feel the way I do. Because, you're humans, we're emotional people, and guys in particular, you've been taught like you're not supposed to, express your emotions. That's a bunch of shit. Right now, they've got emotional experts. One of them is called Dr. Brene Brown. She goes around to military, to the top personnel, and teaches them to be vulnerable because they know that a real man cries. Like literally, like if you can get your emotions out, cry when you need to, you'll go out on the battlefield and be a lot tougher. And you can hold that shit in; it causes problems, right? So anyway, kind of digressing a little bit, but that's what CRO is. Because people don't remember what you say. They remember how you make them feel, right? Yep. If you make someone feel stupid by talking real smart on your website, like using big words and long sentences, they're like, I read this, I feel stupid. You make me feel stupid. I don't like feeling stupid. I'm going to go to the next website, So you have to understand, people come to a website to solve a problem, to make their life better. What are you going to do to make my life better? How is your service, your product, going to make me feel better about my life, right? And it's so deep, and people don't realize it. They just think, oh, it's like SEO. You just put a different headline and put a big CTA button. It's like that's not CRO. That's not even CRO, dude. That's like saying SEO is link building. It's like it's not that simple. Like so much more complicated.
It's simplified. Yeah. It's one of the things I like. The personal growth person I usually listen to is like Tony Robbins and a couple of them. And I know some people like them, some people hate them, whatever.
No, I love Tony Robbins.
The thing I love about him, he's like, why do you do what you do? Why do you say what you say, and all this other stuff? And it's like all of it means, it's like even when he spoke at like ClickFunnels, he's like, you take the problem and you blow it up, and you take the solution and blow it up. And then people will react to it because when they buy your product, they're buying you, not your product.
That's right.
Buying what you can, solving their problem, not your product. Stop talking about yourself. And I tell people it's like if I'm doing a sales call, usually it's visual. I'll put out these graphs and grids and stuff like that because people are visual. And if I sit there and show them, here's where your competition's at, here's where you're at, and here's what we're going to do to get you where you want to be, it's usually they're sold. It's not it's not a problem. It's like a matter of why do people say what they say? Listening to people whenever they say certain things. I mean, I've been married twice, and that definitely teaches you to listen to people. But like you're talking about therapy and stuff. To me, it's like most people just honestly, like me, especially coming over here in the Philippines. I know this now. People need someone to talk to. You see how much you need a social environment. Coming over to the Philippines like I did, ain't got a whole lot of people to talk to. Everybody talks a different language in my house. My own son now, he speaks Bisaya.
So, I thought it was Tagalog over there.
Tagalog is the national language, but there's thousands of different variants. Like where I live at is actually Cebuano or Bisaya. and
Okay.
like everybody in the house speaks Bisaya. My mother-in-law can understand Tagalog, but she can't speak it. And my wife she can speak English and everything, but like now my son-in-law, I love hanging out with him because everybody in the house is fluent in English, and they speak Tausug, and they also speak Bisaya, and they speak Tagalog. So, but yeah, I mean, I so agree with that. It's someone, getting someone emotionally versus just here's my information. And yeah, I tell people all the time, it's hook, like Russell says, hook, story, offer. Admit I never understood that until I started really reading that stuff. There's a couple other CR books I came across. So
Yeah, I like that too. Like that, I haven't heard that. I'm not a big Russell Brunson person. I've heard great things about him. It's just there's like thousands of people I'm not a big person with because there's just so much time in the day,
there's
right?
so much information. It's like I have
Yeah,
his books.
it's
I
way
have
too
to
much.
not have read through all of it. Is like I usually, I just grasp certain parts of it. It's like I'm not in the ClickFunnels
Yeah.
scene. I'm in the
Well, what you
WordPress
said
scene.
though, hook, story, offer, right?
Yeah,
That like you couldn't possibly boil it down better than that because that's what it is, and that's what all the great speakers do. I've listened to hundreds of TED Talks, and my favorite TED Talks are the ones that the person is just a really great storyteller, and they have a good story to tell too. Because you can be a good storyteller, but just not have a very good story to tell, right? I mean,
yeah,
because that's happened to me with TED Talks too, right? You listen to someone, they think, "Oh, my story is so it's not interesting," and it's subjective, it's relative, right? But going back to Tony Robbins, I do love Tony so much. I think what I love about him is how much he's evolved. And I think a lot of people don't realize that people change. Like some people change, most people don't change. Tony Robbins has changed. I remember I was a kid in my 20s, and we'd be all smoking weed and stoned. It'd be like 2 a.m, and all the TV be over, and these infomercials would come on, and it'd be Tony Robbins with this big like horse mouth, You'd be like, and like, I would be laughing our asses off. This guy's an idiot, and he was. He
yeah,
seemed like an idiot. Yes, his world was so foreign, right?
yeah,
So, fast forward, a couple decades when I did the personal power program just by myself. I didn't go, I won't
yeah,
need to go see him. There's free videos online. I've got his whole personal power series, right? I listen to it and it makes a lot of sense, right? It's like everything that you consume a little bit rubs off on you. Like I love,
yeah.
SEO this week with Clint Butler. I don't understand, and I don't absorb everything he says. Like he's just rattling off like bum bum bum. It's like my God, a lot of amazing information, but can I absorb it all? Like I got 3 dozen clients to service. I've got 2 kids. I've got a life. I take weekends off. I've only got so much memory, and so but it's important. So it's important to surround yourself with people that are smart and like-minded, and just always know that you can only ever absorb so much. It's
Yeah.
hopefully absorb the right things.
Yeah, I used to be it's like just live, eat, and breathe it, and then now it's gotten to the point I just want to teach it more than I want to. I do it, but I teach it like my staff. We got 24. None of them have ever done SEO, and I've taught every one of them how to do everything from web design to SEO. We have, but it's you can't. I've had people. They'll ask you. They're like, "Can you teach me everything you know about SEO?" And it's like. It's 20 years of experience, and then B, something new comes out every damn time you turn around. So it's not,
Yeah.
you just learn it and stop. It's, today something's going to come out, and then next week something comes out, and you constantly having to update. And then there's a new tactic or whatever, and you got to test this out. Then someone says this doesn't work anymore, and then you got to go test this and see if they're saying it's right.
It's so tough to keep up.
So, and
Yeah, I've been following you for a while, and then so when you invited me to be on the show, I thought that was really cool, man. It was so out of the blue
yeah.
because there's like certain people in the periphery, you know what I mean? Like we're like that guy looks interesting, but I'll have to get to it later, you know what I mean? Like as you just talking about.
I appreciate that. Yeah, because I get a lot. They're like, "Who's William? I've never heard of you ever." Like that don't mean nothing. I've just just do SEO. I did it before Google, Penguin, Panda, and all the bears and all that crap, but it doesn't mean I didn't exist. And then he's like, I can't believe you got 20 years experience. I'm like, trust me, it's not something I'm going to lie about. I got 20 years experience doing it, but I went, because I was doing the SEO, I got my team up, and then I was like, I'd really like to start bringing some people on and just talking to them and, learn from other people, because it's one of the things I like. I mean, I learned that as well. Tony Robbins talks about that. That's what he used to do. He goes to multimillionaires, figure out how do they think, what do they do, what about them, what makes them tick. Because different SEO, it's the same thing. Different SEOs are totally different from other people. You got Craig Campbell and Chris Palmer. They're both in the same world, but they're two totally different people. Two totally different ways they do things, and they could get along, but they'll disagree in the same breath, So, and I love that.
Those dudes are trips. I've watched both of their videos.
Yeah, I had someone when I did Craig. They said, "Can you get a translator while he's talking?"
Totally, that was me too. Like, I really have a hard time understanding Craig sometimes, but he's very well loved. He seems like such a nice guy,
Yeah, he was one of my first people, because honestly, I didn't know what to expect, because I was like, no one wants to talk about SEO and be interviewed. These people, I mean, I guess it's a viewpoint in myself. I'm like, I charge like dirt cheap. Like Terry, he's an awesome schema god per se, and he charges thousands of dollars to schema. Little old me, I charge like a couple $100, and I'm like, over here. And I think, where these guys want to talk to me about Craig the same way. I thought when I went to outreach to Craig's going to say, yeah, I'll talk to you for about, $1,000 or something. And Craig, first thing, he's like, sure, man, just send me your calendar. We'll do it. And I was like, what? I wasn't expecting that, And everybody's very open, because, it was unexpected. So I really want to start doing more and more, just talking to more people, and, at least once a week, talk to somebody different, because I do my class as well. I'm on sabbatical right now to April 1st, and then we'll do our class again, because we're running that. Originally, I started that mainly because I was in the group giving value, stuff like that, doing audits, and then people said, hey, I want you to are you going to do a course? I was like, I don't want to do a course. I hate people. I can't stand courses, for one.
Yeah,
and, because everybody's doing courses. And then I had like almost 200 people asking me. So I went, sure, I'll do it. And then I started doing it, and the course literally goes over 90 days where I'm just like going over little things, SEO, very basic stuff. And people's like, oh, it's golden nuggets and this is being dropped. I've never heard this. No one's ever showed me. And I'm like, this is just what we do on a regular basis. So for me, it's nothing like crazy. But I do SEO from a different point of view. It's like, I'm not, quote unquote, in my mind, I tell people, as far as SEO, I'm probably pretty dumb compared to most people, but I don't think of myself as very smart per se. And I tell them, said the reality is how I look at SEO is I go, I want to be on page one. I want to be where these guys are at, right? So what are these 5 people right here doing that I'm not doing? And let me make a list of it. And then I do everything they're doing to get where they're at. That's all I do. That's SEO to me. It's not all the scientific, well, do you have this? It is the technical part of it, and I'll do the technical part of it. But for me, it's I just reverse engineer what people are already doing to get the results. But I also know, Google, what used to work could go away and then come back, and there could be new stuff, and things that used to work, as Craig says, and then stops working, then it comes back again, so, yeah. And I've been seeing a lot of that lately. So, but it's interesting, I'm interviewing you, then I interviewed Terry, and it's like everybody I've been.
Oh, did you interview Terry Samuels?
I interviewed him. I reached what happened with, I reached out to Terry and then a bunch of you from the SEO conference.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, let me get Robert, let me get Terry. I interviewed Terry, I think, last week, and then Chris Palmer, and then Craig Campbell. And this week, besides yourself, I have one more. But Terry, he's a real down to earth guy. I love, he's
Right. I have a good Terry Samuels story. I'm actually probably talking to you because of Terry Samuels. Yeah. So it was, let's see, it was NFG Rockstars was here in Anaheim, and Stephen Kang, who runs SEO Signals, that right? So,
Yep.
I've been talking to him, and he told me he was going to be at NFG Rockstars, and I'm like, well, cool, I go, let's hook up. And he's like, sure. And so we met up, we had dinner. Kyle Roof was actually, he came with us, although he sat at the table right next to me. And we had dinner and stuff. And then Steven, he's like, I'm going to bed. And he goes to bed. So I go over into it's $2,500 for this conference. I'm like, I'm not spending $2,500 on this conference. Like, I don't know anything about these. I've never heard of any of these. I never heard of NFG Rockstars, SEO Rockstars. You might have heard of like SMX, right? MozCom. That was about it.
Yep.
Right. I at that point, I don't think I even heard of Chiang Mai. Right. And so I go into the bar and I'm like, holy shit, there's Clint Butler, Ted Kubatis, Kyle Roof, all the guys from OMG, like these guys, like that were my idols, right? Especially like Clint, Kyle, and Ted, because at that point I watched every episode of SEO Fight Club. So I went over. I'm talking to Ted. He's the coolest dude. He's like a monster. He's like 6'5" or something crazy.
Yeah, I'm actually interviewing him tomorrow. Ted Kubatis.
Oh, dude, he's the coolest dude. He's so he's just like he is on SEO Fight Club. He's diplomatic. He's kind, and he's off the fucking charts good at SEO. Smart. He's the smartest I've ever run across. But that doesn't mean anything. There's so many great SEOs out there that they don't talk. They just do their work and they don't say shit, right? But Ted is helpful. Like, he helps the community and just dispenses these massive brain dumps every episode of SEO Fight Club. So anyway, then I see Clint Butler over there. He's sitting at the table, having some beers, some guys. And I go over to him like, hey, dude, I'm Robert, man. I'm a big fan of yours. And again, same thing, very soft-spoken, but super cool dude, like the nicest guy. And I couldn't believe it. I sat there just hanging out with him. Terry Samuels was sitting at the table, and everyone wants to talk to Clint. So I'm like, everybody's fighting to talk to him. But Terry's sitting there, having a drink. And then I start talking to him and he tells me about his conference, SEO Spring Training. And I'm like, you ever thought of having a CRO guy? And he's like, yeah, we know a guy, but he doesn't like speaking in public. I'm like, well, if you ever need somebody, let me know. And then, so I go back. We hung out till like 1 or 2 in the morning, like closed the place or whatever it was. And I went back to my place and, a week or so later, I'm like, fuck, I really want to present at SEO Spring Training, even though I'm terrified. So I started my Facebook group, CRO Junkies. So I'm like, I'm going to show him. I'm going to show Terry Samuel. I literally started it for 2 reasons. Number one, because I wanted to give back. I saw what an amazing leader, a group moderator and administrator Stephen Kang was of his group, and I learned so much from that group. So I wanted to give back, and I really felt like I looked at all the other CRO groups, and they were just like, weren't very active. There wasn't much there, not much membership. Like, I can do better than this. And so
or you get members and then they don't talk. They just sit.
Yeah, there's no engagement at all, right? So and then the other reason was I wanted to impress Terry Samuels. I'm like, I'm going to show this dude. So I built it up to like 50 members, and then I invited Terry, and he joined the group, and I started like posting like 2-3 times a day. Boom, boom, boom. I was like showing people like perfect, like, check this out. And all of a sudden it was 100 members. It took me like 6 months to get to 100 members. I'm not kidding. And then it just kind of exploded to where we're almost at 5,000 members now at about the 1.5 year mark.
It's like us. I just showed my wife. She couldn't believe it. Back in December, we were at 100 and something members. We're over 2,600 now.
That was awesome.
I was in another group that I was a moderator for, and then got removed from being moderator for, jealousy issues or whatever. And I took that group. We were at 4,000, and in 6 months we were up to 14,000. When I left, and to this day, that was 4 months ago, they're still at 14,000. And I told them, I said, the thing is, it's a matter of engagement, because I would go in there and just do free audits. Who wants a free audit? And I'd do like 30, 40, 50 damn free audits, and everybody loves it.
Yeah.
And just helping people, giving them information. Hey, where can I get citations from? Here's a citation list. Hey, what about this? And just give them free stuff or whatever. So
the point of my whole point of my story was, after a couple months, Terry invited me to speak at SEO Spring Training, and that set off a chain reaction. I spoke there, and it led to this and that. And I'm just bummed that I didn't get to hang out with them all in Arizona. Clint, Kyle, Ted, all of them were speaking there. And
he's really wanting to do spring training again, but he said he might have to push it back to fall, because we were just talking about that on the show too. So
yeah, I figured
the way people are right now. So,
but you're doing the right thing, doing these and just networking, getting to know people. That it changed. Crashing NFG Rockstars and going to have dinner with Steven and hanging out with Ted and or with Clint and Terry for that a little bit that night. That was like one of the dude, I had to drive 2 hours in traffic to get there. Like, I'm like, this sucks. What am I doing? I'm crashing the party. All these people paid for it, and I'm showing up like some douchebag, like after hours.
Yeah, me, I'm sitting there waiting. I'm like, I can't wait till this whole COVID thing's over with, because I want to travel. I'm like, as soon as I find out at the conference where Terry or any of them speaking, I'm like, I want to be there. It's like, I hope y'all do spring conference. I'm ready, because he had announced it, and then it wasn't enough people because of everything. So.
Yeah, and now I've spoke at 4 conferences in the last year, and I never spoke at a conference in my life 18 months ago. So, and then, I'm being invited to awesome shows like this and other podcasts and shows, but name dropping, because, everyone needs to watch SEO This Week and SEO Fight Club if you love that. And if you want to learn more about conversion rate optimization, definitely check out Mech Labs, not Meth Labs, not the drug. Mech Labs, MECLABS, and Dr. Flint McLaughlin. I'm telling you all right now.
I just saw McLaughlin. Is it McLaughlin?
Yeah, McLaughlin. Yeah, with a G. But dude, I'm telling you, I have run across countless CRO people and websites and organizations, and there's just nobody in the same league as Flint McLaughlin. But just nobody. He's the king daddy to me. He's not just like a CRO. For me, he's one of the most important marketers that ever lived. He's at that level to me. And I just, the guy is just, I love hearing him speak. He's like a preacher who preaches about CRO. He's a cracker. Watch his videos, and he gets all animated, and sometimes it seems like he's pissed off, but he's not. He's and he does these live optimizations of websites, and he will just rip into people like, this is just terrible. It's like, this is a tragedy. What are you doing? And he just lays into the site. And sometimes I'm cracking up, and tears are coming out of my eyes because he's so funny. And I don't think he even realized, he's not trying to be funny. He's trying to be helpful. He's so passionate about what he does, and he understands it at such a deep level that I've gotten more out of his, I've learned more from him than anybody else in marketing, for sure. Maybe everyone else.
That one up.
Yeah, it's like what we were talking about earlier. If I could give any CRO advice to, people listening, it's this one thing. It's making people assume something, right? It's it's how you make them feel and the assumptions that leads to. So I'm going to give you a really awesome example. Like, this is one of my favorite stories. We're doing SEO for this guy. It's this Israeli guy, and he really successful businessman, right? Multi-million-dollar a year business. He does gates, like custom gates, which is an interesting niche, by the way. If you're in SEO, like, this is not one that people talk about a lot, but these gates, like out here, the ones they do, security gates, can go up to like $100,000. They make a shitload of money for these things. So, people live up in Beverly Hills, Palisades, Malibu. They have these amazing custom gates. Some of them are only, 5, 10, 20 grand, whatever, but they're big jobs, right? It's a perfect sweet spot for SEO. And he, after they do a job, he'd get on his Ducati motorcycle or get in his Porsche, and he'd drive over to the house. Then he'd take a camera and he'd be doing his, his selfie like this. He'd be having his camera out and he'd be like talking to the camera, and he's like, "Look at this beautiful gate. It's amazing. It's the best gate ever. My team is the best, and we're the best. It's the best company. You want the best, you call us," And that's what he does. And I try to explain to him, like, that's not how you sell. That's not how you sell. Like, it's amazing that he makes a video of all of his projects. Like, he's so smart to do that. He's got hundreds, like 600 or 700 of them on his website now. But the way that you sell is you say this, hey, you hold the selfie phone up and you go, "Hey, just wanted to show you this new job. This client called me and he said, hey, we were having a lot of problems with coyotes eating ate 2 of our dogs, and we're worried about our small kids. And there's been some break-ins in the neighborhoods, and my wife comes home late at night. And so we want to have a security fence and a gate put in. And so, I came out to his house and I showed him, opened up more brochures and showed him all the different options and showed him we could match the gate to his house. And they looked like they were all built together. And he said, let's do it. He said, my price was a little higher than everybody else's, but he's like, I could tell you guys do good work by your portfolio. So we did the job. We told him it would take 2 weeks. My team showed up every day at 9 a.m. We kept the noise down to a minimum. We brought our own power, so we didn't have to bother them, for using power. And, every day we wrapped it up promptly at 5. We cleaned our mess. We finished 2 days ahead of schedule. And the client was so happy that we were finished before, he went on vacation, that he bought us this bottle of champagne to thank us, and that's how much he loved our job. And here's his testimonial. And so instead of like bragging, I'm the best, we're so good. That's what every website does. Every one of them. Every single one of them, William. It's ridiculous. That's not how you sell. That is not how you make people feel good. That's about what you're selling.
Yep.
That story that he just told makes them feel like, wow, you're conscientious. You cleaned up. You were on time. You said all of these things that were important to the people, not important to you. You weren't trying to impress them. You were trying to impress upon them how much you care and how meticulous your team is, right? Not how great you are, right? And it's those small details and the way that you flip the tables and tell the story from the customer's perspective that gets them to think, wow, you must be amazing. And it's that shift in their mind where they make the assumption, you must be amazing, versus you're trying to hit them over the head and say, we're amazing, right? What are they going to do? You start trying to hit them over the head with these amazings. They're going to back off and be like, dude, get away from me. Like, I don't like you. I don't trust you. You're bragging. You're full of yourself. I don't believe you. You sound like you're trying to force me to do business with you, right?
Right.
That's what every website does. Every single one of them. I looked for my presentation at SEO Mastery Summit that I just did a couple weeks ago, and also SEO Spring Training. I looked at 2,500 dental websites. There was one. There was one. It was a national chain, though. There was only one company that understood this out of 2,500 websites I reviewed. So that's
besides the website, then what winds up happening, because Russell mentions this too. I keep going back because there's different things I've learned.
I got to look into him now. I'm going to look into him now.
One of which he talks, because he's big on CRO. He's very big on it.
Yeah,
if you look at, because what he learned a lot of his from is direct marketing. direct response marketing, which a lot of which is based on CRO, really.
Yeah.
If you really look at it, one of the things he talks about is once you do what you're talking about, you're now an expert in the field. And once you position yourself as a quote unquote expert without positioning yourself, without talking about yourself, then you get raving fans. And once you get raving fans, you're going to get people that are going to talk to other people about you. Oh, you should try out this person. Oh, you should try out Robert. Robert's awesome with SEO. Robert did this for me. You know, oh, you have this problem. Oh, you want to go see Robert. You don't even have to talk about yourself anymore because everybody else is talking about you.
Yeah.
You know, so, and he talks about that as well, you know, and stop talking about yourself, talk about the problem, talk about, you know, how you're going to make them feel. He goes through all of that. You know, you'd love it.
Yeah, I'm going to look him up. I think you're like the tipping point because I've been hearing so much about him. And now finally I'm like, wow, this guy seems like he's, you know, very similar into the way that I approach marketing. I'm also a big fan of Donald Miller and building a story brand, which basically is like, hello, you know, don't retrain people. They already love stories and the way that TV commercials and movies and sitcoms work, which is, you know, you introduce.
You'll love him then because that's all he talks. He talks about, you know, basically branding yourself and creating yourself as a customer avatar. Who's your customer avatar? You know, who's your number one customer? Where do they go? Where do they get their information from? You know, what do they like? How do they feel? You know, not just, hey, it's Robert, 50-something-year-old man. He lives in a nice house he's bought or whatever. It's like, what is Robert like? What type of sports does Robert like? When does he go out? What type of food does he like? All these different things, and he tells you how to market to them. So, and where to find them, and then how to market to them. Not just, even if you're doing SEO, how do you get them? How do you get the email list? How do you get their information? You know, and stuff like that. So it's really good, in my opinion, on some things.
It's an interesting story too. Another recommendation I would make to your listeners and to you is look up SCORE, the Service Corps of Retired Executives. You get free mentoring, and like I got lucky. I went through a bunch of mentors I didn't like, and I found one, and he's a retired film and television producer. Amazing, brilliant guy. And one day, I won't get into like all the awesome things he taught me about. He could take a paragraph that I wrote and make it into one sentence, and it would say the same thing like 1,000 times. But one day, he knew I did CRO and SEO, and one day he's like, check this out. He's like, I'm getting braces because I've had a family dentist for 20 years, but she doesn't do orthodontics. So here's what I go. He goes, I looked up what I do. I looked on Google for orthodontist. I looked up, he says, I think I looked up 6 or 8 people, and this is the guy I chose. And he goes to the website, and it's the dentist is standing there on the beach with a volleyball in his hand at the beach. Everyone else has got a stupid dental office and dental chairs and some stock photos and, you know, people smiles like everyone knows what a smile looks like. Everyone knows what clean teeth look like. Everyone knows what happy teeth. Everyone knows what a dental office looks like. You are not helping yourself by putting these idiotic pictures up. This dentist just stole your business because and this is what he told me. He's like, you know why I picked him? Because he seems like a real person, right? Websites are impersonal. And the more that you can do to make your website personal, reflective of who you and your organization are, the better you're going to be remembered when people are in that phase, you know, the awareness and consideration phase before the decision phase, right? So they're going to shop around, and then they're going to go back to the one that was the most memorable. And that means the most human, right? It's like we're becoming less and less personal. Like everyone's, you know, you go to a restaurant and there's 10 people at a table and they're all and no one's even talking to each other. It's crazy, man. All the kids are on the phones, and parents are on the phones. Like,
yeah, my wife took a picture of me the other day. It's funny. She posted on it because she's eating biryani rice, Indian type rice or Mediterranean rice. She's enjoying it. I'm over on the cell phone just like this and she's like, he's getting full with his CP. So yeah, it's definitely the case.
Cool, man.
But yeah, and I just had a couple of people comment like this in regards. You took extensive notes in your summit presentation. RP, great stuff. Highly recommended. People get the whole summit replayed. Tyler Wolf plus Portillo is magic.
Talia Wolf. I gotta check out Talia. I don't know that name as well. Joshua McAdams. I gotta say, like, he is one of the coolest dudes. Like, he has been a huge supporter of mine, and often controversial, but a good guy, really smart, and I appreciate that, Joshua.
Yeah, Joshua McAdams, controversial is awesome. I love
He's crazy.
controversial.
He's just crazy, man. Like that guy.
We've talked to him a couple of times, but that's about it.
Joshua? Yeah. No, Joshua's crazy, man. He's smart. Don't want to get into a debate with him, that's for sure. I'm not kidding. I'm not arguing with you anymore. He's got an answer for everything. And a lot of times, it's really hard to argue with.
What are some of the best resources to learn SEO, especially off-page SEO? All the popular SEO YouTube videos just talk about creating good content, smacking my head. Love it. You want to answer that one?
I go back to SEO Fight Club, SEO this week, Ted, Clint, Kyle, especially Ted, just look through all the old SEO Fight Clubs and pick the episodes that talk about off-page factors and SEO. Like for me, I agree with you. It's not about just creating good content. You've got to build links, and it takes practice. There's no way to just snap your fingers and be good at off-page SEO. You got to make good relationships with link vendors. You got to try techniques, try out SEO autopilot, and learn how to use that. You can get some good link building going with that. Some people have good experiences with GSA. Some people have, like Money Robot, there's some great sellers on Legit. You can get some great niche edits and link inserts. And, try Matt Diggity's guest posting service. It's expensive as hell, but you know what? It's a lot better to get one $300 link that kicks ass than to waste your time and months of time and money building links that don't do anything.
Squat.
Yeah.
Or getting them there spammy. I have a couple of ways. Like I do use, and people they'll laugh, but I do use Money Robot. But I don't. A lot of people will say, "Well, Money Robot," and they say this for almost everything. Blogs don't work. Money Robot doesn't work. Backlinking don't work. Nothing works. But I tell them all the time, I don't use anything that I have not tested. So if I haven't tested it, I'm not going to use it. And if I am using it, that means it works, because I'm not going to use it if it doesn't work. I'm not going to waste my time with it. I had someone yesterday ask me about blogs, and I remembered some things I was told, and I was like, you know what? Would you rather me, in my opinion, put my effort into schema, my advanced schema, CTR, and some of the on-page interlinking, outbound linking stuff I do, or a blog? Which one? And I told him, said, for me, I know everything I mentioned will move the needle. That blog, maybe, but I know for fact everything else will. So I will use Money Robot, but how I use it's not I'm definitely not going to just go in Money Robot. Let me throw a bunch of backlinks at my site. That's idiotic, and that's what most people do. They just buy it and throw it at their website. Then their websites looks spammy as crap, and then they wonder why their rankings aren't increasing. Then I also do it's something a couple of people I know have mentioned, seems black hatty-ish or whatever, but is Find 404. So if you're in a, let's say, Orlando area, and I'm a roofer or home improvement, I find websites that have broken links. And then once I have those broken links, I email the website owner and say, hey, you realize you got a broken link on your website. Love to fix it for you. You go in there and fix it for them. You can do a couple of things. You can do a redirect and fix it, or you can actually slip in a textual link while you're in there. And that gives you a niche relevant link. So it's might be a little unethical black hat type stuff, but I know it works, and I know people will gladly take you on and say, hey, yeah, fix my stuff. I don't really do a whole lot of blog commenting. I have a CTR system that we use. I don't have to set up my own network, and I don't have to go around with 100 or 200 cell phones trying to, do CTR. And the system I have on top of it was CTR. One thing is, it's like if you come in and just throw 100 views up or whatever, or use, whatever system you want to use, and it doesn't look real, it's not going to stick. It'll stick for maybe a day, 2 days, week, whatever, and then it's going to drop. Yeah. So I do different tactics. I mean, some things, if I don't see growth at a certain percentage, then I will switch, and I have all these other things I'll think about. What could work? The blog commenting. Do we need a very powerful link? Do we need PBNs? I'll build out PBNs and stuff. They still do work. It's just, don't be stupid about certain things. And people tend to, I think they're like, when a Federa came out, let me just take a Federa and I'm going to lose all this weight, and they act stupid. Instead of taking one and doing it gradual, they go, let me take 3 or 4. If I lost, 5 pounds this week on one pill of a Federa, what will 2 pills do? They just do stupid stuff a lot of times. So I just try to tell people. I had one guy recently, I mean, this is usually my answer for is they'll say, well, what about optimizing your GMB post with as much content as possible? Like, let's say 300 words of content, 250 words of content. You could do that. And he asked me if I'd ever done it. I told him, no, I've never done it. So why don't you test it? Tell me if it works. Tell me if it works. I mean, I'm not going to tell you everything. The best thing I think about SEO, and at least the people I listen to, is they'll tell you, test it. I'm not going to give you the answer every time you want it. Test it and find out.
And what I've found out too is, a lot of great SEOs hold their cards close. They don't give out their secrets, because if they do, then everybody finds out about them and then they stop working. They've seen this happen over and over. So you don't hear about the best stuff. One of the best things you can do, I think, is watch the free Matt Diggity keyword masterclass video. I think it's called Keyword Anchor Masterclass or something like that, and learn about anchor text ratios. Also, again, like SEO this week, about 10 episodes back or something, Clint Butler goes over how to analyze anchor text ratios and use the disavow tool to adjust your anchor text ratios, because it's all about just like looking and seeing what Google wants, right? And that said, we've also had some really great success with building content silos. So I highly recommend using those.
And that's a lot of it's just the basics. I tell people, it's like, for instance, I'll spend a month, 2 months just on interlinking, outbound linking, siloing. Do you have your content siloed correctly? And just doing that, and people will see a lot of the jumps I'll post on my screenshots. I'm like, that was just from basic technical SEO, or throwing schema in, or this is from CTR or whatever. But it's like, I've told people before, same thing. It's like Google wants, for instance, Google wants people to come to your site and it be an authority. How do you become an authority? You give them the information they want. If I'm selling running shoes, I don't just have to have a running shoe for sale. I can talk about running. I can talk about different things. I could show videos. And then why would I put a video on there? Well, videos decreases bounce rate. And then people aren't going to be going to my site and leaving, because they're staying there watching a 1-minute video or whatever. So there's one question in here. Frolin, I actually know him. He's from another area here in the Philippines. He has an old Web 20 network since 2013. They're indexed and are do follow as well. If I use it directly in my new site, will it help me or not? Use it as a booster. Let me take this. I would tell you it depends on how much authority it has. Is it good? Is it spammy? I'd have to see it to even tell you, yes, it's good or not.
Yeah, sounds like if it's aged and relevant, it could be helpful.
Yeah, so I'm saying you'd have to even see it to make a statement on it. But if it's aged and it's not spammy, then I would say probably would, but you'd have to see it.
William, would you say that you do more local SEO or
All I
organic?
do.
Only local?
Well, and let me put it this way. When I do local, because I have people come to me just for GMB, I won't do just GMB. I do their website and GMB. But I include that as local. So,
Great.
but
Yeah.
I won't do just I won't do national. And if I do national, it's just much more expensive. And then on top, I'd rather focus on the local and the GMB. Excuse me. But yeah, let's see. I used to do just national. Joshua. Let's see, Frolin, and then Alejandro. Thank you guys. Definitely look at all of those. Well, we've been on here at least an hour, so I appreciate it, Robert. It's been good talking to you.
Yeah, you too, man. Good to get to know you a bit.
Have to have you on again. Are you going to be speaking at any upcoming events or no because of the whole situation?
I don't know. I'm waiting for an invitation to what is it? It's a event in Scandinavia. It's the CRO Jam, I think.
Okay.
Conversion Jam. So I'm hoping to. I got someone told me they were going to invite me, but I haven't got the official invite yet. But yeah, that's all I have coming up, and just getting ready to go to the Grand Canyon and take some time off here. But awesome. I do hope to visit the Philippines someday. You know, I have a lot of Philippine friends here in the United States, and I have 3 VAs in the Philippines.
Yeah, definitely, it's fun over here. There are a lot of some beautiful places to go. Palawan or Boracay.
They're great people too.
So I told them it's like someone, they're very, that part of when I came here, that's when I fell in love with it, was because I came here, never flew out of the U.S. and came here without telling my bank where I was flying. So I'll leave it at that. But
yeah,
luckily I ran into good people when I was here. So, but it's good having you on, and I'll definitely have you back.
Thanks for having me.
Talk some more. I appreciate it. I'll see y'all later, guys.
All right. Good job, William. Thank you.
Thank you, bud.
Take care.